Chapter 7. But can AI be clever? The Deep Blue and AlphaGo victories were extraordinary, but both are still mathematical games. Being human, having a human mind, means we have an incredibly sophisticated understanding of language. We can be witty, playful, creative. We can also understand meanings that shift depending on context. For example, the word dust can mean particles scattered on a surface, or the act of removing that substance. Deep Blue and AlphaGo showed we could teach computers to think. But could we teach them to think like people? That was a question that researchers sought to answer with another game using a supercomputer built for that purpose. The game show Jeopardy! Measures a player's knowledge of trivia and also the ability to figure out the hints buried in the clues. It's a challenge tailor-made for a human mind that is both informed and clever. And there's a twist. Contestants have to answer the host's clue with a question. In other words, it's not just knowledge of trivia. Great players have to understand clever wording and syntax. It takes more than the processing speed to rank a game's next move and its outcomes, as with checkers, chess, or Go. Winning Jeopardy! Requires an AI to understand context in language well enough to tease an answer out of the data it has learned. That's a tough challenge for a computer. But Watson was no ordinary supercomputer. It had enough memory and processors to read the equivalent of 1 million books per second, powered by the electrical equivalent of 4,250 human brains. And it was programmed with more than 100 different techniques to understand the clues, come up with possible answers, find and evaluate evidence, and then rank the answers it had generated. Here's the kind of clue Watson was built to solve. It was introduced by the Coca-Cola Company in 1963. The correct answer is, what is tab? To answer the question, Watson first needed to determine which company first manufactured tab in 1963. Then it harnessed its natural language capabilities to compute that introduced by and manufactured meant the same thing in this context. They don't always. For example, your best friend might introduce her dog to you. But it doesn't mean she manufactured the dog unless, say, Rover is a robot. Even speed and natural language processing weren't enough to win. Watson also had to play strategically. To win Jeopardy! You need to know trivia. But you also need to place smart bets. Not all clues are worth the same amount of money, and some, called daily doubles, let you bet a specific dollar amount without worrying that the other contestants will buzz in. That's where players can really clean up. As part of its preparation, the Watson research team at IBM studied the location of the 3 daily doubles and found that they were usually in the bottom 3 rows of clues, especially the 4th row, and also most often in the 1st column. From there, Watson had to use additional strategies. It had to know how likely it was to get the clue right, and how much a bet would help if it was right, and cost if it wasn't. The IBM researchers knew that people are only okay at this sort of thinking. They programmed Watson to gauge the risks versus the rewards using mathematical models that the human brain can't swiftly process. They did this using a game state evaluator, a complex model trained on millions of Jeopardy! Games between Watson and 2 simulated human opponents that were modeled after real human ones. The developers used data that told them how accurate humans were when they were fastest to buzz in, how accurate they tended to be on daily doubles, and how many final Jeopardy! Clues they solved. That training meant Watson could use its game state evaluator and its confidence in the correctness of its answer to figure out the most strategic bet, all in the blink of an eye. Watson was programmed for every strategic aspect of the game, along with some new insights that the development team discovered on their own.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?